Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all you guys here. And welcome back, everyone, to our Sunday stream. Today will begin the start of our second new series coming to MSF's 2024. We're here in Idaho today, and we're starting our brand new series for Sundays. We're here exploring America's national parks. We're doing a very special flight sim series for general aviation, and this will be all focused on our national parks. So, guys, I hope you're all having a great weekend so far and enjoying yourselves this weekend. But yeah, today's been a very big day, and I'm very excited to get this series started. I know we're not in the national park right now, but we're actually here in Boise, Idaho today. We're going to do a bit of a prologue to the first national park we're going to be covering, Yellowstone. But the reason I wanted to go ahead and cover this today was because I want to talk about the history of the National Park Service. Mainly covering the history of the National Park Service and all the things the National Park System does. And just give you information about the National Park Service before we head up to Yellowstone. I want to talk about the interesting history of our national parks. So the reason I wanted to do this series for a long, long time was I think MSS 2024 has had a lot more visual fidelity improvements, and I felt like this would be really cool to visit the U.S. national parks. And I think that would be a great way to learn more about the updated scenery and stuff. So our flight plan should be pretty simple here this morning. So we are going to start here at Boise Air Terminal. We're going to fly up from Boise through Boise National Forest. We'll reach our first stop at Cougar Ranch, Delta 47, at just right outside the middle of Salmon River. Then our second stop goes through more of Idaho's famous mountains, and we're going to reach our way over to 4 Uniform 7 in West Fork, just outside of Boulder Peak. Another really cool looking book strip. And then our third and final leg will take us all the way to the historic mining community of Butte, which, by the way, we visited during our 50 States and 50 Streams series for Montana. So this will set us up nicely for Yellowstone on Sunday for next week. That's going to be what our flight's going to be today. If you guys want to join on in and want to get going. Or the Southeast Asia server. And here's our route for this morning. Before we get started, I do want to say hello to everyone in chat, all the lurkers and stuff. Hello, hello. Morning to good morning to all of you guys. So we're gonna fly the NX Cub today, and the basis for this series is that we're mainly gonna fly a lot of bush aircraft because we need STOL planes to get in and out of the rough bush strips. And this was especially important for some of the national parks we'll be visiting on this series. And trust me, some of these places are going to be very, very remote, very tough to visit with normal aircraft. I mean, we have some really good examples. Yellowstone, Yosemite, Glacier, all these areas are going to have we're going to get into the backcountry with forests and trees and mountains. So we need some sort of aircraft that can take off in these short airfields. And that's why I think planes like the X-Cub, the Savage Norden, and all those would be amazing planes to take a trip. So, but we're going to take the good old NX Cub today. So, made by the Cub crafters in Yakima, Washington. Very great aircraft. I love Cub crafters planes. They're definitely really cool planes. And I'm very excited to get these planes up and going for this. Let's go ahead and get started here. Go ahead and get this plane up and running. Good old NX Cup. So, I hope you guys are all doing well this weekend. So we're going to be taking off here pretty shortly. So our first altitude, by the way, we're going to be flying above 10,000 feet. So our first leg of the trip will take us around 10,500 feet. This is our max altitude for this morning. So we're going to take off here very shortly. The good thing about these planes as well, these SOL planes, is definitely short takeoff capabilities. You can take off and land at very short distance. I'm going to go ahead and take off here. And we're going to fly around Boise for a bit. Let's go ahead and head up to 10,500 feet. Yeah, 1,000 feet per minute. We're going to go ahead and say goodbye to Boise, Idaho. So I do appreciate you guys coming here today on this morning stream. Been very busy, of course. If you guys were around on Friday, we started our new All Country series. This will be going on for a couple of years, but this is my long-term series, visiting all the countries in the world. In Afghanistan, we started with Afghanistan on Friday, which was really cool. Afghanistan's a beautiful country, but unfortunately, over the past 50 years, it's been marred with lots of conflict. So, this is Boise, Idaho, by the way. Is downtown Boise. This is the capital, largest city in Idaho, by the way, famous for potatoes. But Boise is also famous for its iconic college football team, the Boise State Broncos. And I think it's all around a really cool city. A very underrated city here in the western United States. Really neat place. Would love to visit sometime. But yes, I'm very excited to get this National Park Series underway. A big part, I've been wanting to do the National Park Series for quite a long time, actually. This was one of the series I've been planning out for a very, very long time. So basically, if you all don't know about this series, we're going to be. I really want to do this series since the U.S. has so many amazing parks to visit. I mean, from the epic mountains of Mount Rainier and Rocky Mountain National Park to the canyons of Grand Canyon, the canyons of Grand Canyon, Canyonlands National Park, and Black Canyon of Gunnison, to glaciers like Glacier Valley, Lake Clark, and all those, Kenai Fjords, and more. I think the U.S. has so many amazing parks and some really underrated stuff too. And that's why I've been really wanting to do this series for a long, long time. There are 63 of them we're going to be covering in this series. We start out with the prologue first, which is going to cover a bit of the National Park Service and its history. But as we climb up to 10,500 feet, once we reach 10,500, we'll be covering a bit of the National Park Service and its history. There is a lot about the National Park Service I do want to cover for this morning stream. We are going to cover a lot of GA stuff. The scenery out here looks absolutely breathtaking. One of the really cool things about the national parks in the United States is just the sheer variety of stuff you can find in the United States or national parks. For example, um, unlike many other areas of the world, I mean, the U.S. is one of the only countries in the world you can have all sorts of scenery. You can go from big forests, vast forest land parks like Redwood and Sequoia National Park, to tropical reefs like in Biscayne, Dry Tortugas, America Samoa, to mountains to massive mountains, Grand Teton, Denali, Hawaii volcanoes. I mean, canyons such as Canyonlands National Park and Black Canyon. There's so many types of areas you can visit. It's crazy. Badlands, steppes, glaciers. You can sand dunes and more. You can find them all over the United States. No shortage of great areas in this country to visit. So that's why I want to do this series for all you guys here. So we'll be getting to 10,500 feet very shortly. And we'll start with our national park history, where we'll be talking about the National Park Service. So basically, we're going to be doing the first 10 parts of the series. Of course, we're going to be starting Yellowstone National Park next Sunday. Will be Yellowstone. If you guys aren't aware about Yellowstone, probably living under a rock. But Yellowstone is our nation's first national park, and it may just be the world's first ever national park. But Yellowstone is an absolute gem of a place to visit here in the United States. There's no question about that. There are not many that have the legacy and beauty of Yellowstone. But the first 10 parts of our National Park series on our Discord, if you could check it out, our Discord here, will be visiting here today. But our first 10 national parks we'll be covering here in the next 10 streams are Yellowstone, located in Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho will be our first national park, followed by Sequoia National Park in California. It's not far outside of Fresno. It's actually currently joint managed between Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks. Then our third national park is one of the most visited in the country, Yosemite. And we'll spend plenty of time in Yosemite. You guys don't worry. We'll be doing plenty of time. Then from there, the fourth national park we'll be covering is Mount Rainier up in Washington. We'll take a look at the tallest peak of the Cascades Mountain Range. We'll be doing plenty of flying around Mount Rainier. We might even get a landing on top of the peak. I would definitely like to do that when we get there. But we're going to take some amazing shots of the mountains, of course. Then our sixth national park will be our fifth national park will be covered is Crater Lake in Oregon. We'll fly around Oregon and we'll visit the historic Crater Lake. We flew over there during our 50 States series, but we're now going to check more about the lake once we get there. Our sixth national park is Wind Cave, which is actually in South Dakota. Now, it doesn't have as much, despite not being as visited as Badlands, it was actually the original South Dakota National Park. Wind Cave is really cool. Our seventh national park is Mesa Verde National Park, which is very world famous. It's UNESCO World Heritage Site, by the way. Located in southwest Colorado, and it's very famous for all the Pueblo dwellings that are found all over the site. Our eighth national park is, of course, one of our most beautiful parks, Glacier. You guys will absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite parks to fly over in the sim. No question, it is a favorite. Our ninth national park is also a very popular one. Rocky Mountain National Park. It's one of the most visited parks in the country, being right next to Denver, of course. But Rocky Mountain has some beautiful scenery, just like Glacier. I don't think it's quite as good, but Rocky Mountain is definitely a very great park. And our 10th and last is Hawaiian Volcanoes National Park, located on the Big Island, and we'll be planning on visiting both of the volcanoes today, during that time. Not today, I mean. Not today, but we'll be visiting the national parks. But we'll be visiting both of the major volcanoes, being Mauna Kea, and of course, where the park's really at, Mauna Loa. We'll be visiting that too. So, huge stuff going on for the next 10 streams for the series. Looking very much forward to that. So let's go ahead and talk about the National Park Service. And that's just part one. So the National Park Service, by the way, this is part of the agency of the U.S. federal government within the Department of Interior, and it manages all the national parks, most of the national monuments, and other natural, historical, and recreation properties with various title designations. And it was created in 1916 through the National Park Service Organic Act. The service this agency employs around 20,000 people in 403 units, covering 85 million acres in all 50 states, District of Columbia, and U.S. territories, as well as having more than 279,000 volunteers. The agency is charged with preserving the ecological and historical integrity of the places entrusted to its management, making them available for public use and enjoyment. Of course, if you want to check out the National Park Service and check all this stuff, I actually will put the website here in the chat. If you click here at the National Park Service, you will get access to the National Park Service government homepage. It will look something. I'm going to put this up. I'm going to put this in a new. Sure. It looks something like this. See this site here in the bottom left? So this is our National Park Service page. If you want to look for a certain park or something like here, you can explore by different topics, or you can explore, find a park by state. So we're going to be visiting Yellowstone first. So for example, you guys know I live in Indiana. So if you want to look at Indiana, you go by states, click on my home state, Indiana, and it'll give you a page of the different parks. Stuff by the National Park Service in the U.S. state of Indiana. So there are 3 national parks, says by the numbers here, of the national park units. But there's actually quite a few of them. The 3 parks and memorial areas, there's George Rogers Clark National Historical Park in Western Vincennes. We also have the National Memorial Lincoln Boyhood. This is his boyhood home here in Lincoln City, Indiana. However, we do have one national park, and that is Indiana Dunes National Park. Click that, and you have the Indiana National Park Trail page. And from here, you can learn all about Indiana Dunes, like your basic information, what kinds of permits and reservations, water conditions, you have directions and transportation. You have all the things to do, by the way. We'll click on that. You have different itineraries. You have different itineraries, like if you only have 1 or 2 hours, stroll the sand lines, learn about the ever-changing dunes and the Succession Trail, Indiana Dune Visitor Center, join the park videos. If you have a half a day, you can do half lounge in the beaks, Ranger Lab programs, and more. And if you have 1 or 2 days, you can take a 4.7-mile hike in Cowbell Bow's Dog Trail. One of the really cool places to visit the park. But yeah, this is really cool. And we're going to be visiting Yellowstone, by the way, so we're going to be going to Wyoming. If you want to look at the Yellowstone page, I can also post the page in the chat for that as well. But we'll be covering Yellowstone as well. Here it is, the mighty Yellowstone National Park. Now I'll give you all the information. It'll even give you some bit of alerts. Well, but really useful stuff. And you get to learn all about the park too, like in the news, photos, the history of the park, the different nature stuff. Just really cool stuff. Like I said, I think this is a really cool thing to add to. Going back to our slideshow, of course, and going back to but the history of the National Park Service goes back to the artist George Carlin. In 1832, he traveled northern Great Plains of the United States, where he became concerned about the destruction of the Indian civilization, wildlife, and wilderness as eastern settlements expanded westward. And wrote to Carlin, unless they've been preserved by some great agency of governments in a magnificent park, a nation's park containing man and beast in all their wilderness and beauty. However, his idea would have to wait another 40 years until Yellowstone happened. Of course, Yellowstone at the time, if you all weren't aware of it, Yellowstone country was first explored back in 1869. It was explored by David E. Folsom, Henry D. Washburn, and Vernon Hayden, and it was originally a myth that evolved suggested that this land would be safe for public use. Of course, this myth was exploited by the national park advocates, but debunked by historians. However, eventually Yellowstone was then created back in 1872, built a fort and later by park rangers. However, funnily enough, our second ever national park was not actually originally going to be Sequoia. Our second national park ever was actually Mackinac Island, funnily enough, whose Mackinac National Park was created. Of course, while early emphasis had been creation of national parks, there was also another movement that preserved the cliff dwellings, pebble ruins, and early missions throughout the West Southwest. Often local rangers protect these from plunder, but pot hunters vandalize many of the sites as well. And it continued on for many areas, and the effort spread over to the eastern half by the 1880s and 1890s. But of course, the big thing that changed a lot of America's national parks, of course, was in the Antiquities Act in 1906. This was continued to be part of by Theodore Roosevelt, of course, one of his many reforms over the decades, and declared public operation of historic landmarks, historic structures, and other objects of historic or scientific interest, and declared these sites to be national monument and prohibited the excavation and removal of objects on federal land unless a permit had been issued by the department. It was signed by Theodore Roosevelt on June 8, 1906. Of course, the first national monument, and one we'll definitely be paying a visit on this journey, was Devil's Tower in Wyoming. This was a massive 600-foot tall, high tower of rock, and invisible for nearly 100 miles. It was both guidepost and religious sites, and it became the very first of many national monuments. Other ones included El Morro National Monument in New Mexico, Montezuma Castle in Arizona, Petrified Forest, which later became a national park, by the way, and they formed the core of national parks itself. Others include Bungatana-Weep National Monument, which became Zion, Sierra de Monts National Monument became Acadia, and Petrified Forest became its own national park. But really big stuff, but lots of national park stuff. 44 years after the establishment of Yellowstone, President Woodrow Wilson then officially created the National Park Service on August 25, 1916. And he developed through the National Park Service Organic Act, which stated the agency shall provide and regulate the use of federal areas known as national parks, monuments, and reservations. Of course, the National Park Service was then later reorganized in 1933 by President FDR, which consolidated all of it into a single national park system. And the NPS was directed to see all of these areas. Of course, after all this, with the long period during 1933 1964, it showed a lot of growth in the National Park Service thanks to the Civilian Conservation Corps. And by the mid-century, a growing backlog of park maintenance and development projects posed a lot of new challenges for the system. It was marked by the dramatic inauguration and prosecution of Mission 66, the emergence of natural crisis and outdoor recreation. And between the events of 1933 and 1964, 102 areas were added to the national park system during this time period, and built over 102 new national park systems. Some of these natural areas that later became national parks included the first one being Cedar Brinks National Monument in Cedar City. Of course, Everglades National Park. We've all been around Everglades before. Big Bend, one of the most underrated national parks in the country. The most recent of those being National Monument of Buck Reef in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And the last of those national parks to be added was Haleakala National Park in Hawaii. But some of their most famous national parks are from that time period. Of course, after the 60s and stuff, it brought awareness to natural and historic wealth, and the Johnson administration began to start for the parks for a people mindset. And then it continued to be more national parks developing, including several new national lake shores, heritage areas, and urban recreation. However, the big thing that happened was in 1977, under the Carter administration, he created more than a dozen national monuments in Alaska. The controversy that led to the passage of the Alaska Natural Interest Lands Conservation Act, and that controversy was between national land. And eventually, this led to from the executive order, and it created nearly 47 million acres of land to the national park system and 54 to the wildlife refuge system. It provided many of the new creations of new parks and monuments. Most notably, led to the creation of Wrangell St. Elias National Park, Gates of the Arctic National Park Preserve, Lake Clark National Park, Kobuk Valley National Park, Katmai National Park, Glacier Bay National Park, Kenai Fjords National Park are the big ones, as well as several national reserves and monuments. So that will cover, and of course, there have been several editions of national parks and stuff throughout various administrations, including the Bush years, including the Bush, H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, H.W. Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden have all created several new national monuments stuff over the years. The most recent addition to the national park system was in 2024 with the Carlisle Federal Indian Boarding School National Monument, Pennsylvania. That leads us to the history of our national parks. So, I think that covers a bit of our national park history section. As we prepare for the next leg, of course. A lot of stuff going on here today, this morning. A lot of stuff going on, of course. So if you guys want to know what next week's stream is going to be next week, I'll post it later today. But next week, our schedule will be taking us On next Friday will be Albania. I'll post some information about Albania on Monday. And then next Sunday we'll be covering our first national park in the series. We'll be covering Yellowstone National Park. That's what we're going to be doing this upcoming week. So we're flying over Idaho currently. The scenery is just incredible in this part of Idaho. Can't go wrong with Idaho. The landscapes in this state, it's just gorgeous. Absolutely great. So there wasn't too much stuff going on this weekend. Quite a bit of stuff happened. For baseball, obviously. The Blue Jays have been running away with the AL East, but the Red Sox have been white hot so far, so they're now second in the division. The Yankees are third, the Rays are fourth, and the Orioles are fifth. In the American Central, it's still been the Tigers, though the Guardians have closed the gap significantly now. They're only just 5 games back. They won 9 of their last 10. Orioles aren't too far out, but I mean, anything can still happen, of course. And the White Sox are still last. In the American League West, it's been pretty close between the top 3 teams, but it's been the Astros that ruined the West. So if the playoffs started today, I would say the playoff teams include the Blue Jays, Tigers, and Astros for winning their divisions. Then the rest of the playoff teams will be the Red Sox, Mariners, and I believe the Yankees. Yeah, just barely over Guardians and the Rangers. In the National, the NL East has been ruled by the Phillies all year. The Mets have been, they used to be at the top, but they have really dropped off significantly the last 10 games. But they're still second. The Marlins are third, and the Braves and Nationals have not been good. In the National League Central, the Brewers are just dominating. They're now the best team in the National League. They actually now have the best record in baseball, by the way. The Brewers are the best team in baseball this year. They're actually really good. 72 wins. They're already reached 70 wins. The Cubs are still second, and the Reds are third. The Cardinals and Pirates have been disappointing. And the National League West has been all Dodgers this week. But the Padres are only 3 games behind. The Giants aren't too good. So if the playoffs ended today, the National League would be the Phillies, Brewers, Dodgers win the division, and then our wildcard teams are going to be the Cubs, Padres, and Mets would all reach the playoff. That's going to be Major League Baseball, of course, for a baseball picture. Hey, Devil Dude, good to see ya. Oh, nice. Good to hear, Devil Dude. We're doing a prologue to our National Park Series. We're going to be heading to Boots. We're going to be covering a prologue of the National Park Series. We're going to be doing this on Sundays. So that's what we're doing here today. We're making our first stop pretty soon here at Delta 90. Nice. Honolulu is really cool. I like flying to Honolulu. Salt Lake City, that's a very underrated airport. That's definitely really cool. San Francisco's neat. Atlanta's very busy. It's a very popular airport, obviously. Boston's great for transatlantic. Chicago is Chicago. It's O'Hare. And Charlotte's very neat, too. So definitely pretty cool. Definitely very cool. In terms of other stuff going on locally for me, the USL happened last night. Louisville City was playing Charleston it was the biggest game of the season so far for Louisville City, and Louisville City absolutely dominated Charleston. They led 4-0 in the first half, and they only conceded the 1 goal in the second half. And Louisville City got a massive 3 points in the USL standings. What Louisville City needed, they needed a win. And that was about as perfect as you were going to get it to be. Louisville City's been dominant all season. It's not a surprise we've been the best team in the USL this year. Still only 1 loss all year. Louisville City has been unbelievable this year. It looks like Lucy's going to be heading back to another USL title. Really good year. Also, some of the European seasons happened. The EFL happened, by the way. The EFL Championship just happened its first year. EFL Championship. They just played their first games earlier this week. If you want to look at wins, well, it turns out Birmingham City managed to draw with Ipswich Town, 1-1. Birmingham got promoted from League One, and on the relegated Ipswich Town, they managed to draw. Southampton versus Wrexham was a really crazy ending. The ending of that game was insane. In the 90th minute, 2 goals within 9 minutes extra time got Southampton a 2-1 win. Coventry City and Hull drew. Charlton getting a 1-0 win. Nice win for Charlton. The Baggies get a 1-0 win over Blackburn. Always pretty nice. Who knew Millwall was up to something? Maybe this could be a great year for Millwall. But the game I wasn't expecting was Bristol City absolutely rubbing Sheffield United. It was not even fair. Bristol City destroyed Sheffield. Who knows? Could Bristol City finally get back to the top half of the top level again? It's going to be a pretty crazy year. I know Leicester City is going to be playing today against Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday is going to have a rough year. Yeah, yes, exactly. But no, Sheffield Wednesday is going to have a brutal season. They're going to probably be relegated. If you're unaware of what's happening in Sheffield Wednesday, they've been in a lot of administration issues over the past couple months. So, definitely big stuff going on in their leagues. Also, the second Bundesliga is also new. So, for much of Europe, their leagues have got started. It's already been 2 weeks already for the second Bundesliga. Right now, the leaders of the second Bundesliga are Arminia, Darmstadt, Hannover 96, and Eintracht Braunschweig. I'm also kind of looking at Schalke. Doing all right. They dropped one, but it's some pretty big stuff, of course. But pretty crazy stuff, of course. Still waiting for the Premier League, which is going to happen this upcoming week. Is going to be the Premier League season. I'm looking forward to that, of course. Looking very much forward to the Premier League. Gotta watch Everton, of course. I mean, Leeds United got promoted. I mean, they could win that game, but I mean, it's not easy though. They have to play Ellen Road, and that's never an easy place to play. Ellen Road's pretty tricky against Leeds. Here's the funny thing. If you guys really wanted to know, if it wasn't Everton, the team I would have actually supported would be Leeds. And the reason being is that Leeds and Louisville are sister cities. So I would have supported Leeds if I didn't have Everton. I would have picked Leeds. I mean, they would have definitely been a cool club to support. Leeds got a long history. They've been three-time English champions. Three-time English champions. Leeds have had a long history. They've been battling in Europe as well. A club with a really rich history. They're known as the Whites or the Peacocks. I mean, they have some very famous players and managers. But of course, their greatest manager is Don Revie. He's by far their greatest manager. He's considered to be one of the great managers in football. So, but I do think Everton are going to take care of business. I think the Toffees are going to beat Leeds. And speaking of Everton, they've been playing their new stadium on yesterday. Hill Dickinson looks absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait to visit Hill Dickinson soon. Again, I actually visited Hill Dickinson during my trip, but I would love to enter into the stadium itself um to take a tour around the place. It would be Hill Dickinson. Looks, I mean, it's a gorgeous facility, Hill Dickinson. It's a gorgeous stadium. Right on the dock too. I've seen some of the pictures of it. It looks awesome. I'm glad Everton got. I'm glad they got the new stand finally. Like Goodison's great, and Goodison has so much history. That place oozes out a lot of history. Good old Goodison. But I'm glad that they got a new facility. More than deserve. They deserve to have some good facilities for once. Of course, the other leagues I'm gonna be watching, La Liga, of course, is gonna be coming this week as well. Is La Liga season? I'm gonna be following Espanyol, of course. That's the club I picked. Is Espanyol? It was between Espanyol, Valencia, or Real Betis. Either between Espanyol and Betis. But I picked the Pericos. I think they got a lot bit more history. Despite not winning the Spanish title, they got a bit more history with it. They're like Everton in a sense. Both blue and white. Both are been overshadowed by bigger clubs in the city. So I so I picked the Paraquitos, the Paracos. They're playing the really good Atletico Madrid. They're a really good club. But who knows? Espanyol might have some few tricks up their sleeve. They played well in the preseason. But I mean, Betis and Espanyol both have a lot of club with passionate fans. Like Betis have got really passionate fans too. Their fans are hardcore, very dedicated ones. Plus, Betis have really cool colors. The green and white look really cool. But I picked Espanyol because I didn't want to pick Barcelona, obviously. That's the reason I don't pick Liverpool, so Espanyol have that relationship. Just like Everton does. Why I support the Paracos. Plus, they're a very historic club, too, so. Yeah, I think top two is definitely going to be between Barcelona and Madrid. For the Bundesliga, of course, I'm keeping an eye on Frankfurt. That they've been in Louisville the last couple of years. I do think Bayern Munich is the favorite. Bayern's definitely better. Leverkusen lost a lot when they lost their manager and they lost some of their best players. I don't think they're going to do good. Dortmund's always a top club, but I think second this year is going to be Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt is going to be really good this year. I would not be surprised if they take a top 2 finish this season. They were third last year, and I think Frankfurt's going to do really well. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to land here. So there's our runway, by the way. And I'm going to land down below. Looking forward to Frankfurt doing well. And the last club I'll be mainly following this season is Serie A, and that is, of course, AS Roma. And the story why I picked AS Roma is simple. Rome, the owners of Everton are also the same ones who own AS Roma, which is so to be the freaking group. So Roma, I think, are going to do quite good this year. I think I think they're going to finish 4th this year. I think they're definitely the best of the 3 non-big 3 teams in Italy. I think they're the best ones. I think they're going to finish 4th or 5th. I think they'll probably finish 4th. I think they'll do better than Inter this. I think they'll do better than AC. I think the top 3 is going to be Napoli first, Juve 2nd, and so if I look at last year's standings, Roma's 5th. So I think that'll be interesting. I think they'll be 4th. I think it's going to be Napoli, Juve, and Atalanta. Then I think they're going to take the 4th spot over Inter and AC. So I'm thinking Roma's going to do pretty good this year. Gotta cheer for the Romanistas. Gotta cheer for them. Now, of course, if I wasn't cheering for Roma, the other club I would probably support is Fiorentina, because both them and my local club both wear purple. But I guess that's why I picked Toulouse, since France. Looking forward to this year's Premier League season. I can't wait. So Roma's going to be Saturday, and they're going to probably be on Paramount. So I'll be checking out all the teams I'm going to be watching. Roma, Everton, Espanyol, and Frankfurt. I continue losing now 2 for the next 2. Yeah, looking forward to this year's sports leagues, of course, for professional soccer. Like I said, I would like to visit the Bundesliga, and that's why I want to check out these rivalries, of course. Welcome to Cougar Ranch, everyone. This is our first stop of the day here in our series. So we'll stop here for just a bit as we prepare for the next leg over to our next stop. Going to be 4 Uniform 7. Absolutely gorgeous area, though, especially when you do day. So we're going to go ahead and prepare for the next leg. We're going to be heading out to 4 Uniform 7. So let's go ahead and get that ready for our next leg. So like I said, the nice thing about these aircraft, by the way, here we go, guys. 30. And we're off. Yeah, this is just, man, flying these bush trips and all that, it's just really great to fly and do. And we'll fly in these areas plenty when we do this series throughout. Let's go ahead and cover some more of the national park stuff. Let's go ahead and cover the national park system for a bit. So our national park system includes all properties managed by the National Park Service. It has various titles and designations. And the system is considered to be a natural treasure of the United States, and some of the most famous are known as crown jewels. The system encompasses nearly 85.1 million acres, including 2.6 million of those being in private ownership. The largest unit in the national park system is, of course, Wrangell St. Elias National Park at 13,200,000 acres, which is 16% of the entire national park system is covered by one national park, Wrangell. The smallest unit is actually Thaddeus Kosciuszko National Memorial, which references the life of the Patriot, at only just 0.028. In addition to administrating its units and other properties, the National Park Service also provides technical and financial assistance to several affiliate areas authorized by Congress. And one of those areas affiliated, which is the New Jersey Pinelands National Reserve, at 1.16 million acres. While the smallest is the Ben Franklin Memorial at 0.01. Now, of course, to be a criteria to fit the criteria of being a national park and fit that, to fit the criteria of being a national park, in order to be all Most units have been established by act of Congress, with the president acting in the law. The exception is the Antiquities Act. However, a potential park needs to meet all four of the following standards. It must be an outstanding example of a particular type of resource. It possesses exceptional value and quality in illustrating and interpreting the natural and cultural themes of the nation's heritage. It offers superlative opportunities for recreation, for public use and enjoyment. And it retains a high degree of integrity as a true, accurate, and relatively unspoiled example of the resource. And before the creation of a unit, Congress typically directs the National Park Service to conduct a special resource study of a site to determine its national significance and suitability to be part of the national park system. So it is pretty strict, and only a very limited amount of this sort of stuff that can be a park. But definitely very cool. So basically, for nomenclature, there's over 20 different statuses, titles that can be used, including national park, national monument. And here's the 20 different classifications of a national park. Here's some of those titles. 63 of them are national parks, by the way. And we're going to be covering all 63 of these on our series, by the way. These are the national parks. We will be visiting them all on this series, by the way. Every one of the national parks. Who knows? I may do a national monument series too and cover all of them as well, if you guys want me to. But I want to keep to the parks. The second most of all the units here are the national monuments. And there's 87 of them. Then we have national lakeshore and seashore. There are 13 units combined, 13 units. We also have national preserves and national reserves. We have national memorials, national recreation areas, national river and wild scenic river areas, national parkways. Then we have the National Historical Park, Historic Site, and International Historic Sites. And these actually make the most of all the National Park Service in the National Park Service. It's actually by far the largest. About a third, I believe. It's a third of all the national park designations is one of these. Then we have the National Military Park, Battlefield Site, and National Battlefields, National Scenic Trail, and other designations. So basically for each of these, I'll give you a brief each of those. National parks, by the way, are the most important we're going to be covering, and they preserve national and globally significant scenic areas and nature reserves. Our monuments preserve a single unique and cultural feature. Most notably, we have Devil's Tower we'll be visiting. National preserves are mainly for the protection of certain resources and operate similar to many national parks, but allow limited resource extraction. National reserves are similar to preserves, but operational authority can be placed within state and local governments. National historic sites they protect a significant cultural resource that isn't complicated. National historic parks are larger areas with more complex subjects, and they may be protected in other unit types. Then, of course, we have the national military parks, battlefield sites, and battlefields, and they preserve areas with military history. Most notably, most famous military parks and sites include that of Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park, Vicksburg, Gettysburg, Antietam National Battlefield, and more. Then we have national memorials, which to memorialize a person events. Most famous, of course, is the Lincoln Memorial and Washington Monument. Then we have national seashores and lakeshores. They preserve the coastline. The most famous one of those include our Indiana Dunes and Picture Rocks are the first national lakeshore. The first national seashore was Cape Hatteras. National rivers and dry seaways protect the free-flowing streams over their length. One of the most notable one being the Ozark in 1964. Then we have national recreation areas. They mainly protect those impounded by dams, most notably Lake Mead. And finally, the last one being natural trails, which preserve long distance routes. First one, of course, and the best known, is the Appalachian Trail, but there are also other ones for the historic events. The National Historic Trails commemorate those of historic events, most notably the Trail Tears, Mormon Trail, and Santa Fe Trail. Some of our most famous different nomenclature for these areas. Fine, of course, so we'll get back in the air for a bit. We'll just take a bit of a, don't want to much. But man, look at the scenery in this part of Idaho. It's absolutely gorgeous. Hey, Chunky Flyers, morning to you, my dude. I hope you're doing well. We're in Idaho today. We're flying to the Boot. This morning this is the prologue of our National Park series. This new series I've been doing. This is the prologue. We'll be covering America's national park throughout the Sundays, but I wanted to do a prologue and wanted to get us a bit closer to that series when we get there. So that's what we're doing today. We're just talking about the National Park Service, a bit of its history, and more. Yeah, the views are nice out here in this part of Idaho. The views are just gorgeous of the beautiful lakes. Just breathtaking. Incredible view. But very, very cool. Hope you're having a good weekend, my dude. There really isn't too many flights of news. I know MSF 2020 got a new update. PUBG had a 28% off sale from August 7th through August 10th. Who knows? I might get something off their sale. Who knows? But I mean, I don't think I really want to get. I'm waiting for their 737 to finally come out. I'm waiting for the 740. Exactly. That's why I wanted to do the series. Now, I could visit. I've already visited a few national parks in real life, Chunky. I visited Acadia National Park in Maine. That was one of the first ones I visited. Everglades was another one I visited. It was Everglades, Acadia. I visited those areas. I think those are two of the national parks I visited. Yeah, those are the two national parks I visited, is those two. I think the next one I'm hoping to visit is Mammoth Cave. I would like to visit that soon. That's in Bowling Green. That's the closest one to where I live is Mammoth Cave. Is the one I want to visit. In real life. So in terms of our national, oh cool. Oh. In terms of our national park units and our NPS units, our national park units, by the way, so in course of this, there's over 325 million visits to our national park units in 2023, and it grew 64% between 1979 and 2015, and of course even more so in 2024 with 331 million visits. Now, the top 10 most visited parks handle around 30% of the visits is to the top 10 most viewed, and the top 10% of parks handle over 64% of visits. Of course, the park with the most visitors is actually Blue Ridge Parkway. Yes, it's the most visited national unit in the National Park Service. In 2024, actually, 2023 had 16.5, but I need to update it because the most visited National Park Service thing now is actually Golden Gate National Recreation Area is the most visited in 24. As 17 million people visited Golden Gate National Recreation Area in California. Then we have Blue Ridge Parkway at second. And third is Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Now, Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in the country, by the way. Then fourth, we have Gateway National Recreation Area. Gulf Islands National Seashore, Lincoln Memorial, George Washington National Parkway, Natchez Trace Parkway, Lake Mead National Recreation Area, and then Glen Canyon is 10th. Is our most visited national park area. So, definitely something we can. Yes, Grand Canyon and Death Valley. I would like to visit those parks as well. I think some point later in our life, we're going to visit Grand Canyon. My dad wants to visit there sometime in the future. Wants to visit Grand Canyon. We'll definitely do that. I would like to visit Zion, and Petrified Forest would be pretty cool too. And that's why we're going to visit these parks on our journey, by the way. Yeah, Lake Mead. Yeah, that's a natural recreation area by Hoover Dam. So you see the pinned comment up top here? I put a pinned one. It is to the National Park Service website. Very useful information stuff. And I'll be pinning that whenever we do the series, by the way. I'll pin those up every national park we go to if you guys want to learn more about the parks. I might provide notes, but I'm more than happy to provide you information about the park information. Be happy to give that to all of you guys. So we're about to head into Bitterroot Wilderness, of course. We're going to make our way here pretty shortly. I don't think we have too much longer to go. We'll stop at 4 Uniform 7 for our next stop. Red Rock Canyon, pretty cool. Zion is a park I would love to visit. Zion's really cool. So many parks, and that's why we're doing this series. I'm really excited. Bryce Canyon's neat. Sometimes it may not be real well shown in sim, but I still want to check out the parks anyway. But I'm very excited to do. So I'm definitely looking forward to a lot. Looking forward to that. But yeah, the national park though I really want to visit the most in real life is either Big Bend or Glacier. Those are the two parks I like the most. Glacier is absolutely gorgeous. The mountains, the peaks, the lakes. Those are the ones. Yeah, happy to get this series up and going for the first time. Thankfully, this isn't a super serious stream, of course. Very, very excited for all of this sort of stuff going up. So there really isn't too much going on, of course, in their sports. In terms of the NFL, of course, I know Anthony Richardson just suffered a finger injury. That can't be good. Fourth overall pick, and now he suffers an injury like that. That can't be good. That can't be good this preseason. You can't have that injury. Um, and not have that injury, especially to a fourth overall pick. That's not good. I think for how I think the NFL is going to be this season, I think the teams in the Super Bowl are going to be the Chiefs and Eagles once again. I think the Eagles are going to go back to back. But I just think the Eagles are just too good. They're just too well rounded. Got so much good youth talent. I think it's going to be just too much for the poor Chiefs to handle. Yeah, the Chiefs are still the best team in the AFC, but man, the NFC is just pretty once. According to USA Today, I think they picked the Colts to finish 4-13. I think, I don't know. I mean, last year the Colts won 8 games last year, so I think that might be a little low. But I mean, it's going to be very tough, though. They said that the Chiefs would go 11-6. They said the Broncos would win. Here's the thing: I actually do think Denver's going to do really good this year. If Bo Nix could put another level to his game, I think they could. They have the defense to definitely compete for a championship. Their defense is very strong. They got Patrick Surtain, who's really talented as well. They build that defense. They get a better offense, and it's yeah, yeah. I just think this is Eagles. be a good year, and I think it's going to be a pretty interesting year. But I think they said the Ravens are going to win the championship over the Packers. I disagree. I think it's Eagles versus Chiefs. Eagles are going. I just think Philly's just got Barkley. Yeah, Yellowstone is also an area we want to visit. My parents want to visit Yellowstone. We're going to go there next Sunday. We'll be flying over Yellowstone next Sunday, so we'll get plenty of opportunity to visit Yellowstone, of course. We're going to have plenty of opportunity. We're going to go ahead and descend. We're going to descend to our second stop. Second stop should be I don't watch football much more. 6 years in Germany and the games just weren't great. No worries. No worries, Chunky. I know. I was. I'm a big sports fan. In fact, that's where my series got to start. So I'm sorry if I do sports. Sports is just a passion I like doing. That's flight sim stuff. In science, of course, sports is one of my passions. I do. I do apologize for that. I mean, I've been keeping track of my local teams and stuff. I've been mainly keeping track of that. I just stupid bots. Yeah, it's hard for me to get a conversation. I keep track of something. It's hard sometimes when I'm streaming that to find something to talk about. I don't want to just mutter about nonsense. I keep things local to me. Plus, I'm trying to balance out my notes a bit. I got like 3 more notes here for the rest of the stream. I want to save them. So here it is, guys. Our first stop should be very shortly. Another beautiful bush strip. I picked this one. This one's really. Okay. And this is breathtaking. Of course, when I get done after the stream, I got some stuff to do in my FS Hub. I got Aero Economy now, so I can do missions. But for me, I got an achievement to work on as well. They did a brand new FS Hub achievement for airline. K&M Charter. Gonna do some flying for sure. It is kind of hard sometimes. Being here as well. Here, guys, Westport Lodge. Here we go. Collapse. Slow this bird down. Clearing, and we'll land here. Yeah, the vast majority of our airports here for this series are going to be in the bush strips. Some of the exceptions are going to be some of the water landing areas we're going to be required, because there are going to be several of our 63 national parks that will require a float plane. So I'll let you know which airports we're going to have to require some float landings, of course. And we're down. We'll park here for a bit. So we'll stop here and park our plane here for a little bit. Ah, the beautiful GA scenery, man. Gotta love it. So, so we'll be staying here for a minute. I gotta take a quick break for a second, and then we'll get ready for the second and last leg, for the third and last leg of the stream. So, see you in a bit. Hey guys, all right guys, I'm back. Sorry about the quick break. So we're gonna get back for our third and final leg of the trip. We're gonna be headed our way over to beautiful, beautiful Boot Airport. Go ahead and get ready to go in the air. This one's going to be 72 nautical miles. Shouldn't take us very long, of course. There's a reason I took an XCOM. It's actually better performance than the regular XCOM. Should get up here a lot easier. We climb to 10,000 feet. So of course, I've only got a couple weeks left till my vacation. I'm going to be heading out in about a couple weeks. Going to be heading back to Canada, New England again. Going to do another 10-day trip over to Canada in New England. I'm going to be flying back to Boston, of course, and then go visit Portland, Maine, St. John, New Brunswick, Halifax, Sydney, Nova Scotia, Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Then I'll be visiting Saguenay in Quebec, and of course the famous Quebec City. Then visiting the famous Quebec City as well for a day trip in Quebec. I'm looking forward to that, of course. So, of course, let's talk about some bits of the national park. In terms of the budget for our national park system, 2019, the National Park Service has an annual budget of $4 billion US and $12 billion in maintenance backlog. Of course, in 2020, the Great American Outdoors Act signed, reducing the maintenance backlog from $12 billion to $9 billion over a 5-year in 2021. And as of 2022, the National Park Service has the largest budget allocation of any Department of the Interior Bureau or program. And the budget's mainly divided by two areas: discretionary and mandatory spending. Within these areas, there are specific purposes for these services. So discretionary spending includes those of the park operations, as well as the park police, and more. They also include resource stewardship, visitor services, park protection, park facility maintenance, park support, and external costs. That's mainly what discretionary spending is. And of course, mandatory spending and then mandatory spending as well is all the stuff they have to be mandated to spend. Now, of course, to bring more visitation and allow for more audience to enjoy, the National Park Service has numerous concession contracts with private businesses to bring recreation resorts and other amenities to the parks. And they include the most famous ones include Wawona Hotel in Yosemite, Fort Baker Retreat in Golden Gate National Area, but also lots of our corporations and resorts, other parks, including that of Yellowstone, Grand Canyon, Badlands, Olympic National Park, Mammoth Cave, Bryce Canyon, Death Valley, and more. So that's definitely some pretty big stuff. In terms of offices, the National Park headquarters is in the main tier building in DC, just several blocks southwest of the White House. And the office is mainly um, has 11 different directorates, including those of director, deputy director, business services, workforce management, chief information resources, natural resource stewardship and science, comptroller, park painting facilities and lands, partnership, visitor experience, and the park police. Now, of course, you can find regional offices across the country, including Anchorage, Atlanta, Lakewood, Colorado, which is Denver, Omaha, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and Seattle. And of course, are the main. Of course, these executives manage national programs, policy and budget from those from Washington, D.C. Under the Director Department of Education of Operations, there are several regional directors who are responsible for the national park management and program implementation. And they're called the National Leadership Council. Of course, in terms of employees, there are many kinds of workers that are employed by our National Park Service. These include the National Park Rangers, interpreters, law enforcement, park management, U.S. Park Police, and then separate emergency management, which include those of medical providers, research and rescue specialists, lifeguards, dispatchers, maintenance, which covers a bunch of different areas, different fields within maintenance, park planning, architects, resource management positions, which includes like those archaeologists, biologists, and more, historians, fire management, public affairs, and administration. All these different areas of people work in their national park service. So I think that's going to be our last slide for this morning, of course. The rest of the slide after this one was Yellowstone, and I think it's a little early to talk about Yellowstone right now. I'll cover more about Yellowstone when we get to the national park itself. Trust me, there is a lot to talk about Yellowstone. Trust me, there's a lot about Yellowstone we're going to be covering. Here we go, guys. We're going to get pretty much closer. good, beautiful area here. So we're heading into Montana, actually. We're heading east to Boot. Now, we covered Boot back in our 50 States series, but Boot basically is the historic mining community in Montana. Of course, it's most well known for having the massive Superfund site of Berkeley Pit. It's an absolutely massive site, and this area did a lot of copper mining back in the day. So, that's something to keep an eye on when we're going to head to Montana. So I'm very excited for what this week is going to provide us. So the next community we're going to be visiting, of course, so we're going to get moving on forward as well. Also, another thing too, when we do this series, by the way, I'm not going to really turn on the landing rate monitor very much for this series, as we're going to be landing in some bush areas, and if I had the landing rate monitor, it would probably track everything I do. That's what we're mainly going to be doing plenty of throughout this. We're about 35 nautical miles out from our final stop in Butte, Montana at Burt Mooney. Beautiful scenery right here today, just gorgeous. Yeah, we're going to be heading to Butte in just under 30 miles. So in terms of other stuff going on here as well, there really isn't too much going on with me this week. This weekend. What I mainly did was get me a new light fixture up there. Really cool. It's both a light fixture and a fan. So I now have a fan in my room finally. So if it gets really hot, I can cool down a bit. Hey Quartz, good to see you, my dude. Good morning, or at least good afternoon to you. I hope you're doing. we go. We're going to descend down to 7,000. Here we go. We're going to send down Boone Airport, Burt Mooney's. So that will be our last stop. I think we're going to sail a little more probably when we see him next time. We're going to spray him. Here we are, guys. Welcome to Butte, Montana. There's Berkeley Pit. I make the landing. Here we go, guys. So welcome to Butte, everyone. Welcome to Butte, Montana, everyone. I hope you all had a great day today. I really enjoyed this nice flight into Montana. So we're here in Boots. So we'll be back in this airport next Sunday as we make our way to our first national park of the series. We'll be covering Yellowstone National Park. So thank you all so much for coming here today. We'll be returning to streaming on next Friday. We'll be going into Albania. So see you guys all there. We're gonna go ahead and say hello to Two-Tone Murphy. Definitely appreciate it, Chunky Flyer. I hope to see you again next week. So we're gonna go raid Murphy and his band of misfits. So take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your weekend. And see you all soon. Goodbye, everyone.